So just to keep you for what exactly happened, a Christmas ghost comes into my house, steals all my Christmas decorations, then gives me the proposition to review all 3 versions of the Grinch, so I can save all my stuff. Which is fine, but the problem is that I have to save one version while the other 2 will rot in hell. And as far as I can tell, the majority of people have always picked one version, and that has always been the original animated special. This is the point where it's going to get very complicated, because I personally don't have any grudge on any of these films. So let's review the second adaptation, but before that, a brief of history. When the TV special aired in 1966, it brought such positive reaction that became a Christmas classic. So much so that even other Dr. Seuss books would later go on to adapt in other TV animated specials, including Horton Hears a Who and The Cat in the Hat. And also the Grinch would later have his own specials, including Halloween is Grinch Night, and even a crossover with The Cat in the Hat. And although those specials might be decent, they're not going to be as great as the original How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and even the performance of Boris Karloff. And while over the years, Dr. Seuss still stands that his books should not be adapted into feature-length movies. But then 1991 came, which he unfortunately passed away. So he gave all of his book rights to his widow, Audrey Geisel. And unlike him, she did wanted to adapt his books into feature-length movies. The 90s was still a good year for the story of the Grinch. The animated special is considered a classic that we all know and love. There was a few bits here and there for the story, including an audiobook narrated by Walter Matthau, and even an obscure Broadway musical. But going back with the movie, Audrey Geisel was still intact on making this book into a feature-length film to the big screen. So many studios, writers, and directors were giving out ideas and drafts. And finally, it was Universal Studios that was going to distribute the film. And the filmmaker to direct would be no other than Ron Howard, the acclaimed director of Parenthood, Apollo 13, Splash, and Cocoon. But of course, it comes to the idea for who's going to be the main star that's going to don the green-faced creature. And names were coming around, including Dustin Hoffman, Eddie Murphy, Jack Nicholson, but finally, they settled with the one actor that is no other to be my favorite one of them all, Jim Carrey. So finally, everything was all prepared to make this film with such high budget. So, without further ado, let's review the 2000 live-action feature-length film of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. If you read the book and saw the animated special, the story is still the same, except that they expanded and added a little bit more. So, let's talk about these additions. The Grinch is considered to be a mischievous character that many Whos are just afraid of the guy. But Cindy Lou Who is the only one who finds it curious about the situation. And after having an encounter with the Grinch, she doesn't find that much of a mean person on him. And then she goes on to investigate his backstory and even try to convince the Whos that he should be the holiday cheermeister to their holiday celebration, much of the mayor's dismay. So when she invites the Grinch, he denies to go, but then he changes his mind, just mostly because he wants a prize. And unfortunately, it did not work out quite well. And after that disaster, the classic story ensues. So, as many of you might know, this is one of those movies that has such a great diverse and opinions with critics and audiences. Some people love it for how imaginative, fantastical, and entertaining movie. Other people hated it for how ugly it looks with such inappropriate humor. Personally, I freaking love this film. With such undeniable flaws, but I'll get into them. Yeah, I'll say this, I can't find myself hating the film. I loved it when I was a kid, and even as an adult, despite reading a lot of negative reviews, I still admire the film. Sure, there are points that it really doesn't work, but there's a lot of effort put into some areas. So before talking about the negative, let's start with the positive. Let's start with the first positive of this movie, and strangely enough, it is actually the environment, setting, and production in general. This film has such high budget that they went on to translate the Dr. Seuss imagery into stylistically in real life. Now that may sound a little off-putting to some people, but it's still quite fascinating for the way they execute it all. The costume designs are also very detailed that even characters that are supposed to be like minor roles have such distinct on what they're portraying. And while sets and wardrobes are good, they still don't top for what this movie accomplished the most, and that is Rick Baker's astounding prosthetic makeup effects. This is one of those movies that has all the ensemble cast covered in makeup, not just the one actor, but all of them. Jim Carrey's Grinch face is one of the most fascinating transformations that I've ever seen in any cinematic production. This makeup artist did so well to cover his face, his teeth, his eyes, but the best part is that Carrey worked out pretty well. He definitely looks so unrecognizable, with the exception of his performance. And while some people might find the Who's a little creepy and not that good looking, I still don't mind them because they do bring the fantastic feel for this movie's story and production. Speaking of which, let's talk about our main actor for this version, Jim Carrey. Now, some of the criticisms that many people had with this performance is that he is so over the top that can get very annoying. And while I can totally understand for what people are saying, in my opinion, this performance is actually kind of brilliant. Very energetic, that is quite amusing for how he pulls it out, especially for wearing a costume and makeup that is not very easy to work with. Not to mention that he is downright hilarious. Like, he brings a lot of laughter. For the most part, but I'll get into that later. There's a lot of moments that brings me chuckles every time, such as his schedule moment, or the scene where he dresses up Max the dog into a reindeer and tries to direct him like a movie director, and even his mischievous shenanigans that he does to the Who's. So, while the performance is so eccentric, over the top, that some people want him to be restrained for a little while, he does put a lot of effort and at least has his own personality. Very grouchy but very goofy type of character. So what I'm saying is that Karloff has his own take and Carrey has another. With Jim Carrey's own take as the Grinch, there has to be an actor that has to have the same sophistication as Boris Karloff from the original to narrate the story. And they got that actor in the form of Anthony Hopkins, mostly known for playing Hannibal Lecter. Hopkins has a lot of presence in this movie. He says all the words quite well, rhyming nonetheless, and even he's having a lot of fun. Like, there's some points where he has to whisper only one line because the Grinch is stealing Christmas. Definitely a great actor to tell the story of Dr. Seuss's classic. One of the things that I love about this movie is the music. The original score is composed by the late James Horner, who is considered to be one of my favorite composers of all time. And this movie is no exception. It's not one of his best, but it is worth to hear because for how beautiful it sounds. One of his original themes is titled Where Are You Christmas? And it comes into any sorts of way during the movie, and it's so beautiful. From its instrumental version to his song sequences sung by Cindy Lou Who or Faith Hill in the end credits. Speaking of songs, let's talk about the main song, You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. In this version, it is sung by Jim Carrey, and while his rendition is a bit more over the top that goes into many voices during the song, it is still quite fun to hear. It's not gonna top the nostalgic original one, but this one brings a lot of wackiness, and I love it for that. The only characters that are featured from the original source material are the Grinch, Cindy Lou Who, and Max. They bring a lot of new characters in this version, including the antagonistic form of Jeffrey Tambor's Mayor Mayhew, or the Grinch's love interest of Christine Baranski's Martha May, or Cindy Lou Who's parents in the forms of Bill Irwin and Molly Shannon, and of course a character that should be played by Ron Howard's brother, because he always puts his bros in every one of his movies. The only ones that stuck up to me a little bit more were Jeffrey Tambor and Bill Irwin. But let's talk about Cindy Lou who has a lot more role in this film than she did in the original. She's played by Taylor Momsen, and for being her first role, I think she was fine. I mean, granted, I didn't thought she was like the best child actress that I've ever seen, but for what she was given to work with, I think she was good. I do like the addition on her character that finds curiosity on the Grinch. She sympathizes for him, that she wants him to be part of the citizens of Whoville. And while she may sound a little bit too Lisa Simpson-ish type of character, you know, like the one girl who has a lot more brains than the rest of the citizens, including her parents, she brings a lot of likability and cutesiness that I just can't find myself hating her. Not the best actress, but for her first role, she was good. Now, as much as I love this movie, there are some things that don't work quite well. So let's start with the first weakness for this movie, the writing. It needed better. It's not a completely awful script, but definitely needed to be revised. Like, for example, the Grinch's backstory. It is not horribly written, it's just that, is that the best that he can do? Like, the reason that he hates Christmas is because a bunch of bratty kids poke fun of his supposedly beard? Even the teacher, like, give this woman the worst teacher of the year award. Not to mention that the dialogues are a bit awkward and kind of weird. Like when the Grinch screams out a very awkward definition that I just can't find myself understanding, like, bleeding hearts of the world unite. What does that even mean? Or how about the moment where the Grinch tries to scare Cindy Lou out of his cave and he just goes into full bizarreness. This movie definitely needed another draft. Which leads to another weakness that it's a little hard to talk about, half of the humor. Now, when a movie is hilarious, it is funny as hell. Jim Carrey's ad-libbing is great. But then we have the other 50% that brings a lot of inappropriate humor that I don't even think I remember laughing as a kid. I don't remember laughing when the Grinch's face landing on Martha's cleavage or the mayor kissing the dog's rear end. In fact, it just came out awkward and kind of unpleasant. There's even a moment in the Grinch's childhood where he sees both of his caretakers partying around. I didn't understand it when I was young, but now I can see what they were doing. They were boozing around. So yeah, some of the jokes felt unnecessary. Fun fact here is that both Jim Carrey and Ron Howard did the best they can to omit the inappropriate humor. Even Carrey admitted that his ad-libbings were more family friendly, but they had to keep some of them due to studio interference. That gives a lot of explanation for why The Cat in the Hat was awful. Now, one of the problems that many people had with the Dr. Seuss movies is that they incorporate so much pop culture references. And to this movie's credit, it has the least bit of that. There's a few parts like Chariots of Fire or Die Hard. Yeah, it doesn't have that many. And maybe that's why this movie is not completely hated like the other movies. In conclusion, this movie is definitely by no means perfect. It definitely needed better writing on its depth and field on the characters and story structure. The humor goes either hit or miss, where some are entertaining while the others just feel unappealing. I definitely would have preferred either 2 or 3 of them to be deleted. But the other elements still hold up to me quite well, even when I was a kid and still as an adult. The music is wonderful, the effects are impressive, and even the performances, especially coming from Jim Carrey and Taylor Momsen, are quite delightful. Another third mention on the characters is Kelly the dog as Max, which brings a complete heart on the Grinch's story. Especially that he gets third top billing during the end credits. So, the last thing to say is that Max the dog is freaking adorable. Say what you will, he is cute. Now, as seen many movies from Jim Carrey and director Ron Howard, this one is probably somewhere near the middle of their filmography. It's not one of their very best, but I've seen them do worse than this. But one thing for certain is that this movie brought something memorable, whimsical, and quite nostalgic feel since I grew up with this movie. It may not be a good adaptation, but it definitely was a very entertaining flick. It may not be in the same level as the original adaptation, but it still brought something wonderful and magical on a story that takes place on a snowflake. Which, by the way, that was quite clever for their part. That is all I have to say for today. And let's see what's gonna happen for when I'm gonna deal with the new version. Which I really don't know if I ever wanted that movie to be made to begin with. Oh boy. Well, I'll see you into the next review. And let's see if I can get my stuff back. To be concluded.